Greetings. This is Europa Natural Law, a roundtable transmission dedicated to healing the madness, the badness, and the sadness plaguing our beautiful, bountiful world. Through regaining our sanity, reclaiming our inborn sovereignty, and honoring our inherent responsibility, we can improve reality. I'm Oscar. I live in Denmark. I'm a student of natural law, and I aspire to be able to teach it in a very clear manner in order to help the paradigm shift that is required to manifest freedom. And with me is Adrian and Param. And please introduce yourselves, tell the audience where you're from and what your relationship to natural law is, and then we'll get into the topic.
I'll go first. I am Adrian Hernandez. I'm from the United States. I study natural law, experimented in my real life, and I aspire to become a natural law teacher online.
I'm unmuted, right? Everybody can hear me? Okay, I'm Param. I'm Dutch. I've been living in France for a very long time and aspiring to be a natural law teacher as well.
Cool, and thanks for participating to the roundtable discussion. I've looked forward to this one. Today we're continuing our exploration of the Hermetic principles. The Hermetic principles are 7, and we've reached the 6th one, which is the principle of causation. And the Hermetic principles are described in a book called the KYBALION. You can find it in the description below. It's the last link. And before maybe giving well, we can read this, and then we can also kind of try to describe it in our own words. Was my thought for the introduction of the subject, and also maybe look just a very simple definition from a dictionary. And from there, I think we should just keep it open, see what comes to our minds, and bring it to the table.
Adrian has such a soothing voice. Can he read this?
Soothing voice. All right. Causation. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law, the KYBALION.
So, cause and effect. I'll give it a go. A cause is an event that comes prior to an effect, and an effect is a resulting event of something that has been my definitions are so bad. How would I define causation? Causation is there is like a before and after. It's a sequence. So you'll have an event that comes before another event, and if the relationship between these two events is causation, it means that the second event or the event that comes later would not have been able to occur without the event coming before it. And again, this is not really a definition. As you can hear, I'm a bit more unprepared this time. Causation. Causation is what relates to, like, it's about requirements. It's about what happens. Everything that happens only if the specific requirements are met. I'm not very satisfied with my definition, but I gave it a go, and that's what this first part of the conversation is all about.
Adrian, you want to expand?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give my my own definition for cause and effect. Just straight off the dome, it's just something that is set into motion by another thing with yeah, I don't really know. But you know, like, it's like something is created from another thing. The effect is set forth into motion by a cause. And usually the cause is the why in situations. I could honestly learn more about this.
All right. He says something very important is the why. You remember in the Matrix, the why? Okay, we'll come back to this, huh? Why? Why are the things the way they are? That's pretty. It's a pretty crucial question. So, we'll probably on the fly, Oscar, I could count on you for taking a little excerpt of the Matrix where he touches upon the why. Okay, I'll try. I'll give it a go. I would say it's the realm of causation is what precedes manifested reality. It's the all the preceding phases before it trickles down into the field of matter. Okay, it's how it trickles down from the realm of ideas into the field of matter. I can't put it out. It's this. Yeah.
Hey, it's cool. I mean, it is difficult to define things, and often the challenge also lies in not using the word in your definition, like the word that you're trying to define in your definition, right? So I don't think there's anything wrong with we're struggling a bit, but we don't have to nail it the first time. We can look at another definition or some other definitions and see if we can arrive at a better definition. So the one that the text we brought up before. Oh, this looks weird. Can I go like this? Yeah. That's from that's like I don't know if that's necessarily a definition. That's more like of a statement or a description of a principle. But if we were to look at a definition, we would look in a dictionary, and this is from the Oxford Dictionary. And yeah, I'm up for if you wanna read it, Adrian. That's cool. We can also alternate between the different words here. I can start with the first one here. Causal is an adjective, and it means of or forming a cause, relating to cause and effect. Causally is an adverb.
Causality is the relation of cause and effect, principle that everything has a cause.
Causation, an act of causation, causality.
Causative is an adjective, means acting as or expressing a cause.
And cause, thing that produces an effect, person or thing that occasions or produces something. I got to read the whole thing. Yeah, reason or motive, adequate reason, principle, belief, or purpose, matter to be settled at law.
All right, so I think this is helpful. Maybe we can keep it at this and move on to exploring the principle, of causality. And the background I was using before was a GIF, not a GIF. I learned that last time. My pronunciation wasn't accurate, but you see here it's dominoes that are falling on top of each other, or like are causing each other to fall. And I think that's a cool image to describe it. It's like a very generic image, but it nails the principle. It's about, like, if you remove one of those dominoes, the chain of falling is stopped. So every event, every domino falling is an event that is causing the event that follows it, the following event, which can only happen if the requirement is met, which the prior event meets. Oh my God, my my definitions. It's very simple. I feel maybe it's best that I just sip it for a minute here and collect my thoughts. But yeah, causality. Why are we talking about it? How does it relate to natural law or morality? I think are good questions. And as you were also saying before, do we feel qualified to talk about it? What is our level of knowledge regarding it? What are you showing here? I'll make you.
It's one of my latest works, and it's natural law, it's symbols and terminologies. And you can't read all of it, but the idea is that the principle we're just about to discuss is very central in the Hermetic principles, because it's been natural law has also been referred as the law of cause and consequence, or consequentialism. So it means that this one principle in itself is another name for natural law in itself. So it's like pretty overwhelming, overreaching, it's overreaching sufficiently for it to be called, for having it giving another name to natural law as cause, the law of cause and effect, or consequentialism. So it speaks pretty loudly and to the principle we're touching upon, cause and effect. So
why has morality, or like why has morality or like a theory of morality been described as consequentialism? Should I bring up should I try to find like a definition of it, or can you try to put it in your own words?
I'll give it a shot. I mean, natural law is a behavioral science, right? I remember watching the show. It's Tom and Jerry. I mean, obviously it doesn't work like that. I think even Mark says something that you don't just rob somebody and a piano fall on you or an anvil, you know, just crush your skull. You just that's kind of how I see cause and effect. Is just like you take an action and then you get a result based on the nature of that action, based on what you did and what made you take the action, you know, the idea, some sort of feeling, thought, maybe somebody wronged you, or maybe you did it out of a act of love. Something inspired you to take the action which created the effect. And everybody takes actions in life. There's times where maybe you can liken the principle of cause and effect in a good light and a bad light.
Oh, Adrian, to your points about cartoonish examples, I think Mark Pasha also used the idea of the image of a bee. If a bee would sting you each time you would do something wrong, well, probably you'd make the causality relation between your wrongdoing and your punishment. But the reality doesn't work that way, unfortunately. Or I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate, but anyway, that's not the way it works. And the dominoes we could see on the slide on the screen here. It's also interesting that the same image. I think Mark Passer used one little image about with a guy just pushing the first domino, and it's the last domino that falls on him. But there's a big circle, and it reaches somewhere you cannot see anymore. So you don't know how many chain of events brings you back exactly. Yeah, that great. Well, here you can still see the end, the whole circle of dominoes. A more realistic one would be where you don't see the whole pattern of dominoes because it's maybe it's gonna you'll probably get punished not by the same person you've been hitting or doing wrong to, but maybe another life, another circumstance. It's a calculation that's out of our reach in a way. We can't even see the circle of dominoes. Yeah, in the same way, I think the bee stinging us as soon as we do something wrong, we probably would make the relation between the wrongdoing and the stinging of the bee. But again, it's not the way it works. So that's, I think it's again an invitation for us to realize that, oh, there's a chain of events. We can't really see them immediately. It's not so obvious, but it takes a little effort and clairvoyance, or at least, I mean, it's a long-term process, and I think the fact that we can't relate the cause and consequence of our behavior and very instinct. The idea of instant karma doesn't really work. I mean, there's a lot of videos of that on the web of people stealing something and immediately being bumped into a car or by a car or something. But that's more the exception than the rule, I would say.
Right. I was wondering, like, how have you seen the principle of cause and effect play out in your life? Maybe some examples.
Well, I mean, I have an example. I have a handicap in my feet because when I was a kid, I tried to commit suicide by jumping out of a window and landed on my feet, broke my heels, and now I have this handicap for life. So I feel like I'm constantly reminded of this principle, which is beautiful in its simplicity, but that doesn't mean that being ignorant of it cannot suck. I mean, obviously, there are many examples of the principle of causation being used in different ways. I mean, you can use it for good as well. Like if you're trying to create something good in your life, like if you want to be healthy, you'll eat good quality food, or you'll exercise, you'll spend time in nature, and so on. But you can also create a lot of suffering by using this principle. And for me, this example, or like this handicap that I have in my life is a constant reminder of that the law is unescapable. Like you can't escape the law. That even though there are many planes of causation, nothing escapes the law, as this chapter begins.
I'm really glad you're still with us.
Yeah, I was going to say
Me too.
the same.
Me too.
I was going to say the
Hey,
same.
when you're a teenager, you're like it's a difficult period, and lots of stupid decisions are made, and I mean, there's like a bit of a side note. There's been a lot of attempts in my generation, suicide attempts, and it's a very interesting phenomenon to look at, like why there's been so much self-harm being committed by young people.
Yeah.
In that time period around 2010 to anyways.
Now why,
that's one example.
Yeah, why is that, you know? I mean, I hate to tie it into the topic at hand, the principle, but like why were so many people, you know, attempting suicide then, you know?
There's an interesting book called The Anxious Generation my girlfriend is currently reading, and it explores and actually like explains, or like it kind of it does it so thoroughly that there's not really room for doubt after all the evidence and studies have been explored. And what it's basically describing is how smartphones and the advent of social media has had a huge negative impact on children, and a move from play-based childhood where people, or like where children were outdoors and socializing, and we're kind of we're getting that kind of feedback from their peers, onto phone-based childhood, or where it was everything was happening through, not everything, but a lot of that transition period was happening through internet relationships. I'm not explaining it that well, but it's a book by Jonathan Haidt. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but very, very interesting topic. And I mean, it's not at all like a stretch to tie it into the principle of causation, because what is causing this epidemic of mental disease, or like why is there so much trouble with mental health today? Like it's not at all a stretch to tie that into smartphones, social media, and look at that as a cause. And the book that I mentioned goes so far to say that it's one of the root causes. Like it is what is causing that amount of self-harm.
In French, would say sensation d'inadéquation, like a feeling of
inadequacy.
Yeah, and a loss of purpose, maybe, as well. It's like the world doesn't make any sense, so how would I make sense of my life? It's all pretty sad, actually. Well, I'm glad you came back from this pretty radical experience with gravity.
Yeah,
Oscar.
a grave experience with gravity. Exactly. Yeah, well, I mean, it's it's one of the more obvious examples is when people have a handicap or have like a damage or like an injury. If you have an accident in your life and you carry a scar, you're never gonna like there's so much teaching in causality, right? I mean, there's so many lessons that are in the end just are only possible through the principle of causation. Like we burn our hand on the fire and we learn that fire is hot. We feel the pull of the ocean, where and we learn that the ocean is a dangerous element or aspect of reality, that you don't mess around with these strong forces. You have to be careful. And there's a book called The End of All Evil that also goes into how freedom is very related to our ability to test out our ideas, or like through prudence try out different explore reality. And we learn, because with every decision we make, we're able to see we'll get the result of that. We'll see what happens. And what legislation does is it kind of says you don't need to go through that process. We will just tell you that this is wrong to do, that this is illegal, and you shouldn't do that, because the result of it will be negative. So it doesn't, like, it robs individuals to be able to themselves find out, mess around and find out, right? And obviously we don't want to have a society where everyone has to burn themselves in order to learn that fire is hot. And that's not really what I'm arguing for. What I'm arguing for is that this capacity we have to learn from our mistakes should be honored, and we shouldn't intervene when someone is doing something stupid, in the sense of, like, we shouldn't try to control them and say, don't do this, because that's idiotic. We should embrace freedom. That's what I'm proposing, at least, even though it means suffering, or like even though it means the possibility for suffering. So let's say you have a friend who is a drug addict. You'll of course talk to them, but you won't try to control their behavior. You'll want to talk sense to them, but you can't in the end. Like, if they choose to go out like that, that's their free will decision, and you can't really act in alignment with the principle of voluntarism, or of respecting free will, if you intervene in a way that is coercive. Which is I'm using that as a metaphor for saying that's what our states and our legislations is doing, right? It's saying you are not allowed to smoke marijuana, for example. In a lot of states and nations, that is still the case, and one of the most dangerous aspects of it is actually being punished by or getting a prison sentence, or a huge, like having to pay a fine for that behavior. Not to say that there cannot be any negative aspects to smoking marijuana, but it's one of the simple examples.
Could you put a little note? Make sure we touch upon the law of freedom at some point, and how morality is related to the subject we're touching upon. And also, I just to make a little link to a continuation of the principle we've been touching upon last week. You came up with, you thought it was maybe a bit of a stretch to take this trial observation results and new data, new trial and observation, and so forth. And yeah, it looks like a cycle. It looks like a rhythm. It is, but it also touches upon how you observe cause and consequence again through your experimentations. What causes, what effects you obtain with certain causes and so forth. So it's like I've been very, very moved by this. It's a French guy. I'm not going to say his name, Christophe Dejour. But anyway, his whole focus is on. His title is Psychodynamicien du travail. So the whole psychodynamic of people at work, and he says people slowly improve themselves and become experts by a whole series of failure and I don't think there is a way to go around that phase, that necessary phase of trial and error, and finally, and this other guy find the solutions. He didn't find the solution that works.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I accidentally removed you from the studio by pressing the wrong button.
That's okay. I can't remember which scientist was blamed for not finding the solution. It says the solution that works. Yeah, I didn't find the solution that works, but I found many others that don't work. It's like the apophatic process again. It's by elimination.
Yes.
So
you're eliminating all of that which is impossible, and what you're left with, although improbable, is the only thing that is possible. It's the Sherlock Holmes method of deduction. You're removing everything that it cannot be, and what you're left with is that which it must be.
Tout à fait.
Sounds like the experimentation process of the trivium.
I'll just mention that we really appreciate everyone in the comments section, and we'll be reading your comments a bit later in the show. So if you have any questions or if you have any cool thoughts, we'll bring them up. So keep them coming.
Yeah, I'd like to hear how the principle of cause and effect can be likened to the trivium and choice. Would anybody have an explanation?
Well, maybe we can start by defining the trivium method. The trivium method is a system of learning truth, of truth discovery, and it's all about a three-step process. So I actually I did bring it up here before, so I'll just bring it up again. Here it is. Even though this isn't a slide that really explains it well, I can find something better. But you have in red, you have grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And that's basically what the trivium method is, the three steps that the trivium method consists of. And grammar is also, you could say, knowledge. It's the step where you gather the data and you try to collect as much information as possible without judging it. Then you have the processing, which is the logic step. You could also call that the understanding stage. This is where you're trying to connect the information with itself, and you're, as we were saying before, filtering off all of that which is irrelevant, so that you're trying to gain an understanding of it. And when you're able to understand reality, you're able to act in it with wisdom. So that's the rhetoric stage. That's where you're able to communicate what you've learned, and you can do that with your voice, with your writing. There's a myriad of outputs to do that. And your question was, how does the trivium method and choice relate to
the principle of cause and effect?
Well, as you mentioned, Oscar, very well. The trivium method starts with grammar. It's like a data. You're collecting data. I would say without prejudging, instead of judging, but that's a detail, I guess. Because I've noticed people that prejudge the information on the source. The source. Oh, that source is really to far right, whatever political spectrum. So I'm not going to even look into it. So that's a pretty much of a prejudging phenomenon there. And so yeah, the first stage is collecting a lot of data from an eclectic variety, an eclectic variety of sources. Yeah. And then I think you mentioned, and then there's three sub
steps. In the processing or the decision-making process, you have
filtering, correlation, and synthesis, or conclusion, maybe, or synthese. I think you should say synthese. But then, how does it relate to cause and effect? Well, your free will is in motion throughout all the process, of course, because you're choosing. It's the logical step is also the choice making process, and then you enact your choice in the end by speaking out. This is the rhetoric stage. So since the free will is involved, and it's all has plenty to do with choice, you're putting, but through your choice, you're throwing you're going to experiment consequences.
I'm showing here a slide that has a lot of text in it, but I think it relates to your question. It's by KRIS Nelson. He has a website called evolvingconsciousness.org, and he has a lot of cool infographics. I can make this bigger so it's easier to read what is written. And I think
I recognize his style there. Yeah, I'll have a look at this.
I think you can start with the input at the left. In white is written input, grammar, and knowledge, and this is what answers the who, the what, the where, the when, that which is manifested. So that which is real, that which is in existence, that which is true. And I don't know if then you can move down until the next step in white is the processing, the logic, the understanding, which is answering the why. So why has that which has occurred manifested? Why? What is it the result of? And you're able to answer that when you've processed the data. And then in the end, if you go up at the upper right, you can see output, rhetoric, and wisdom. And this is answering the how. So you're gonna also be able to know how to respond, or like how to act with the understanding that you have. And so this, if we stay up here, you see we're in the plane of effects, and this is where action happens. And the lower part of the infographic, I think, is supposed to depict the internal processes, so thought and emotion.
I'd like to bring up something about the trivium, something that the dark occultists target that does affect how you can use the trivium. The dark occultists want to starve you of any input, any knowledge, before you could proceed any further into the trivium, to cause you to make uninformed decisions. And there are such a thing as New Age ideologies that do water down the real knowledge, and it really takes discernment, grit, and luck in many cases to find the knowledge in order to proceed and to actually have a good effect in the end by taking right action. And in choice, I just wanted to say, like, in choice, you can choose which nature that you're going to use this method for. You know, you could use it for good, evil, or ignorance, you know? And by choosing the stone the builders rejected, you can, in effect, by choosing that stone, create order if you go down the process and you commit to it with that nature. Same with the stone the builders accepted. You're only going to be a sorcerer. You're only going to create chaos. You know, 3 + 6 is 9. And what is 9? Why 9 and not 3? Right? It comes down to choice. The choice, you know, ties in with the principle of cause and effect, because you're choosing who you're going to be in this world. There's so many avenues I could go at it from, but ultimately it comes down to choice.
Oh, I'm not muted. Damn.
Right.
I was
Yeah.
I was getting a cup to drink some tea.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that that the dark occultists do target the input part of the trivium process. And they
Yeah,
attack the subconscious.
yeah. I
So
remember Mark Passio emphasizing on that aspect because, of course, they cannot control us. They would need a cop behind each person to stop us doing acting freely. So stopping us from the action or the physical expression of our freedom would be kind of difficult. So the best place to manipulate our actions is way down at, you were just mentioning, Adrian, on the available information, and that's how they can distort our, I would say, poison or influence the way we behave through our actions. And you got a really good point there. That's of course the sorcerers are really smart. Well, they're smart enough to know that they can't stop us physically. So so they have to interfere in our process of choice-making decisions en amont. That means upstream, well, where the information is, and so that's really the very important phase, is the quality of our information we take in.
Yeah, we want to maximize the quality of information we take in. We want to get the best of the best, but obviously we also need to collect data from a lot of different places, and some of those places will turn out to be, like, some of the information we gather will turn out to be useless. But it's important we still engage in that process of data collection from a wide array of sources, because I mean, you can say, yeah, well, but some of those places are gonna be useless, right? But you only find that out by collecting it, like, and then then you can refute it, and you can say, oh wait, I see that this actually does not align. So that's that process of knowledge gathering, and yeah, as you're saying, Param, that's where the power over others lies. It's the power to limit or to distract from information, not in physical force over others. And when you mentioned the fact that it wouldn't be possible to physically control the amount of people that need to be controlled by the amount of people who are willing to do that, it reminded me of a short video by Larkin Rose. Larkin Rose has a video called One Tiny Dot, or The Tiny Dot. And I can bring it up if people are interested in seeing that. I don't know. What do you say? Is it appropriate?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, well, check it out. This is by Larkin Rose, One Tiny Dot.
On a time, there were 100 million people. They had different interests, different beliefs, different occupations, but for the most part, they got along pretty well. Then one day, a gang of a few hundred people showed up. Need to zoom in some more to see them. I know they're there somewhere. Zoom in. There they are. And this gang of a few hundred said to the throng of 100 million, "From now on, you all have to give us a cut of everything you earn."
This is an accurate graphical comparison between the number of American taxpayers and the number of U.S. congressmen.
And the throng said, "Gosh, do we have to give you a cut of what we earn?" And the gang of a few hundred said, "Yes, you have to." And the throng said, "Well, okay, I guess we have to." And one little troublemaker asked, "What if we don't?" The gang of a few hundred didn't like this and said, "If you do not comply, we shall unleash upon you our legions of enforcers." And the throng cried, "Oh no, please don't. We will comply, we will pay."
This is an accurate graphical comparison between the number of American taxpayers and the total number of IRS employees.
Time went by, and the gang of a few hundred said, "Now we want more of what you earn." And this kept happening over and over again, until eventually some of the throng were paying almost half of what they earned to the gang. Whenever the gang demanded more, the throng would say, "Golly, we're already having a tough time. Do we really need to give you even more?" And the gang always said, "Yes, you must, or we shall unleash our legion of enforcers." Now the gang of a few hundred was getting trillions of dollars every year, spending it on wars and pyramid schemes, giving away goodies to their friends, buying influence, and doing lots of other things. And some of the throng started saying, "We don't really like the war you're waging with the money we give you. Do we really have to be paying for that?" And the gang said, "Yes, we demand it. Don't make us send out our legion of enforcers." And some of the throng said, "You're taking our money and giving it to huge corporations and giant banks, and some people who just don't want to work. A lot of these things we don't like." And the gang said, "We don't care. We will decide how to spend it. You just do as you're told, or else." And the throng said, "Okay, I guess we have to." But eventually the throng got so fed up, so angry, that they took a drastic step. One day they said to the gang, "We don't like what you're doing. We want a new gang." And after pouring a huge amount of time and money into the effort, they replaced the gang with a new gang. Then the throng pleaded with the new gang, "Now, at long last, can we keep our own money, or at least keep more of it?" And the new gang said, "Sorry, but after much discussion, we've decided that you can't. You have to keep giving us what you've been giving, in fact, a little bit more than before." The throng was distraught and said, "This is dreadful. But after all, what choice do we have? I mean, they say we must comply, and they have that scary legion of enforcers. We're powerless against them. We'd better just do as we're told." So they did as they were told, got poorer and poorer, and lived miserably ever after. But after all, what else could they have done? What power could this throng possibly have compared to this gang of a few hundred and their enforcers? What chance would this thing have against this thing? How could these 100 million people ever hope to successfully resist the awesome power of this tiny little dot? In case anyone missed this, let's review. Here's them. Here are their enforcers. Here's us. Them, us. Them, us. Does anything about this seem just a little strange to you? Are you perhaps wondering, why does the throng need the permission of the dot to do anything? Why do these people feel the need to ask this tiny little dot if they can keep more of what they earn? Why would they spend year after year literally begging for lower taxes from this little dot? Is this dot just really darn intimidating? Is it very persuasive in its reasoning? To be blunt, why would this throng give a rodent's backside what this tiny little dot wanted? The fact that this tiny dot has the gall to issue such demands to such a throng is pretty startling in and of itself. But what is far more amazing is that the throng obeys this minuscule little parasitic gang of control freaks. What could possibly explain this? Let's ask the dot. This is how it works. When we, the dot, take your money and spend it on things you don't like, we're representing you. In fact, though you're not allowed to actually keep your own money, you're allowed to decide which little dot will steal half of what you earn. So that really means that you're in charge and that you're agreeing to give us your money. In fact, we, the dot, are serving you when we take your money and spend it on things you don't like. And so you should thank us and treat us with great respect and honor for having robbed you on your behalf for your own good in order to serve you by doing things you don't want us to do. So there you have it. I hope that cleared everything up for you.
If you're not entirely satisfied with the dot's explanation of things, you really should read the book, The Most Dangerous Superstition, available now at Amazon.com.
The Most Dangerous Superstition by Larkin Rose. And I'm pretty sure Larkin Rose is also the musician behind the very silly score, but it really does work well for comic effect. But the question really is, why? Why would 8 billion people believe in their own powerlessness, believe that in the necessity for control? And the answer goes back to what we were explaining before, that through through the control of information, you can make people believe in such nonsense, and that is what happens. People go to state indoctrination centers or schools where they learn that rights come from government, or that rights are the dictates of legislators. So that is a big part of the cause for why so many people, the majority of people, would believe that a tiny dot has power over them, and should be obeyed. It really is that simple. It really does come back to the trivium method. So the trivium method is very much connected to the principle of causation, because the information that is available to people, the information that people have access to, is what causes, or is what shapes their decision-making processes. And their decision-making processes is then what determine the behavior that we're collectively experiencing. And if that behavior is moral behavior, we manifest a condition of freedom. And that's what all is all about. And also why even though we may not be the most qualified teachers, we are attempting to convey this information, to make it available. The principle of causality, a very important principle, a principle that is all about the why, the reasons. And Param, you mentioned the Matrix scene from the Merovingian. I can't show that because then we'll get a copyright. But it is a really interesting scene. If anyone has not watched the Matrix series, there is a scene in the second movie. That's probably the one called Matrix Reloaded or something.
Reloaded. I think it's number 2, right?
Yeah. And there's a very interesting dialogue happening about, well, the whole movie is very dialogue based, and there's some really interesting dialogue about the principle of causation, about the principle of why are things the way they are. And if we're not able to understand the why, we're essentially powerless. All power lies in understanding the causes of things. If we don't have the knowledge or the understanding of the causes, we have no power to change. There's no power in the realm of effects, of just pointing at things and saying, oh, look at this, now this, and that's basically just complaining. And that doesn't mean that's useless, because that is part of problem solving, as you acknowledge there's an issue, there's something to be rectified. But how are you going to rectify anything without understanding of how it came to be? That's where the solution lies, is in changing the cause of the effect. Once something is manifested or is in the realm of effects, that's the way it is. To take it back to my personal anecdote earlier on, I'm not going to keep on harming myself because I know the suffering that results from it, right? But I can't escape the result from that decision, which was based on a certain level of consciousness or available information, if you will. Now that I've learned the suffering that results from that kind of action, I'm not going to repeat that, because that would be madness. And that's why the saying, I don't know if it's a quote by anyone, but there's a saying that madness is repeating the same thing again and expecting a different result. And that's really what the principle of causation is about. It's about understanding that every cause will have its effect, and a certain cause will not have a different, like an effect that does not result from that cause. So that there's a causal relationship between certain events, and we have to figure out what the necessary cause is for the effects we say we desire. If we say we desire freedom or peace or thriving, prosperity, health, there are requirements. And if we don't meet those requirements, well, then we're not understanding the principle of causation. We're not aligning ourselves with that. We're just gonna bang our head against the wall. We're never going to be able to create that which we say we create. And you hear a lot of people say that which they would like, that which they would like to manifest or be reality is not that which they experience. And why is that? Is that because is it because the principle of causation is broken? Is it just unfair? Is there no justice? Is it just their fate? Is it just a matter of unluckiness? That's something the KYBALION explores. I'll bring up the part of the text of the chapter where it talks about that. Give me a second. Is it this one? 1 minute, folks. I think I got it. I don't know if I got it, but the point, like, I can just maybe, it's something along these lines that the word chance is derived from another word meaning to fall. It's Latin, cadere. Wait, I actually have that here. Like this, yeah. It's the root of the word chance comes from a word that means to fall, and like the falling of a dice, and that's basically the idea that there's a randomness aspect to reality, or why things are the way they are. That there's no reason for them. It's just mere chance. And that's what this chapter is all about, refuting or debunking, if you to use a silly word, but that there's no such thing as chance, that there's no such thing that things just fall, that things actually are orderly, or there's a reason for things happen, and it's, even though there's multiple layers of causation, there's nothing that escapes this law, that everything is happening as a result of some causes, and that every cause will have its effect. I know I'm going a bit on a rant here. I hope that's okay. Let me know if you want to say something.
No, this is good. I wanted to touch upon one of the first pages of the KYBALION, and there was this word chance is a consequence for a cause yet undiscovered, or something along these lines. And chance, coincidence, luck. I think you could use those terms interchangeably. When we were watching this little movie by this little clip by
Larkin Rose.
I was thinking about this guy, Lavoisier, this French author.
Not very well. Please tell me a bit more. Servitude volontaire.
Yeah,
Servitude volontaire.
Yeah, it means willingly enslaved in a way. Servitude means servitude, and voluntarily being reduced to servitude, and that's the whole thing. How does it work? How come so many are manipulated by just one guy? He hammers on this whole. It's a small little book, but he keeps coming up. And this guy was 16 years old. Just when he wrote this book, and a good friend of Montaigne. And I just wanted to bring up this book because it's probably has been translated. I wanted to learn it by heart and play it as a comedian. It's really nice book. And as you were saying, the idea of prerequisites. What's the role of knowledge? It's actually one of the first 4 chapters of Mark Passio's presentation. And I have it here written. If you want to build a little shed, Well,
Can you bring it a bit closer to the camera?
yeah, I think that's how.
Yeah, now this it's more clear. Yeah.
Okay, this
Oh,
guy
that's so
wants.
cool. That's so cool.
So this guy, okay, well, the goal is to build this little cabin here, but and he has wood, but he doesn't have the knowledge to manifest his idea into reality. So it just takes a lot of skills. It takes skills to move from a tree to a house. Anyway, and there's many others. These are the other subjects.
I was just wondering how the principle of cause and effect can be likened or applied to the concept of programmability, human nature. And why is concept king?
Can you expand on your second question?
Yeah, why concept is king? You know, you have a hypothesis, an idea, a plan, a dream. You test that idea. Why is the idea of anything the most important? You know, in Martin Luther King, I have a dream. You know, when you're doing construction, you have blueprint, plan, architect. You know, you write out the blueprint for people to build. So just why is it so important?
Okay, I remember, on the how to become the true media. That was one of the bullet points. I mean, what did he call them already? Like the 10 points, the 10
The 10 tenets.
tenets, right? And he said concept is king. If I remember the right, it meant in a way, okay, when you have a clear idea of what your intent is, the concept, then whatever the tools are, the means that serve your process, you still have to be sure that you're still focused on what you're trying to achieve. So the concept of how things work, like a general concept, and sometimes with time, like there's a new there's new an update or something, or a new tool that comes along, but as long as you have your concept in mind, just the little minor changes of the tools won't throw you away on the sidelines because you still have this very clear idea of the king concept. I think that was basically the idea.
You should strive to understand and apply the conceptual idea that is being worked toward instead of simply attempting to memorize linear tasks. Doing this will allow you to adapt to just about any change in your operating environment. I don't know. I mean, I have to admit, I don't really see just like on first-hand thought is I don't really see the connection between causality and this principle, but I'm very willing to explore it. I don't want to shut it down. I just sometimes things just take time to see the connection. But you also asked about the relationship between programmability. That I definitely see a connection with. That you can definitely see the principle of causation relating to the nature of human beings, which is that we're programmable beings. That what we're taught becomes our software or our way of thinking. Our like that culture really shapes our perception. And one of the other principles in the seminar is to never accept the default settings, and the default settings could because again, how to become the true media is a seminar all about understanding the technology that is required in order to communicate necessary knowledge for creating freedom. And one of the principles, well, the first principle is that concept is king, and another of the principle is this of never accepting the default settings, because they represent the way someone else wants you to work. So you should set your settings the way that help you accomplish what you want to do effectively and efficiently. And the same goes through for our own minds. We should set up the settings of our own minds so that it helps us accomplish that which we want to do effectively and efficiently. But I don't know. I mean, yeah. Why I was saying that because the programmability. So we don't want to just accept the norms without question. That doesn't mean that we just want to rebel against them at all costs, because sometimes the things we're taught in culture might actually be valuable. But we want to be creators of culture as well, and that's what I feel like we're attempting to do here as well. Is we're attempting to spread the seeds and of truth and of objective morality, so that they can be cultivated and grow into that which would in the end result in knowledge of natural law and the decision-making processes that are in alignment with the conscience, alignment with the understanding of rights, and then moral behavior where we respect each other's rights and our own, and then we manifest that freedom. And also this graph also kind of explains that really well, the principle of causality. And I mean, I see the importance of the principle of understanding concept is king. So maybe you can also try to answer, Adrian, and you as well, Param, why you see the relationship, or is there a relationship between this principle and the principle of causality?
I brought it up because, concept can be likened to ideas, and I like the idea of experimenting, testing out ideas. You have the cause, and the effect, and then you just like study that. Then you de-occult it to people. And just, like care, concept can be likened to care, and care drives the will into action. Just, touching more on the trivium process. And that's on the spot for me.
Oh yeah, I definitely see the relationship between this principle, the principle that concept is king, with the trivium method. That makes a lot of sense, that when you want to communicate something, you need an understanding of the concept. You can't just be memorizing linear tasks or linear, like you can't be thinking linear. You need a more holistic understanding of the concept that you're trying to communicate. And when we're trying to communicate the concept of causality, we definitely need to have our concepts in order, which is why I think it's appropriate to start the conversation with definitions, because that's where we have to face how well of an understanding do we actually have of the concept. Are we even able to communicate it simply?
Right. And I also wanted to say how it can be applied to the law of freedom and the science behind that. If we're all on the same page for freedom for the whole nine, what would inevitably be what reality would be created by that? Everybody's so divided. Why is that? If we just turn to natural law, if we had some incentive, what kind of world would we have? And as an effect from that.
Um, I know Oscar's not familiar with Max Egan's work, but he often touches upon. He says we can turn this around. We can turn this whole situation around out of an act of will of all of us. And surely we can make this big change. But what's going to trigger that big collective change? And maybe for the audience, it could be interesting to touch upon actually both human nature and human condition. Is it the moment?
Is it the moment for what, sorry? to explore human nature and human condition? You are muted.
Yeah. Yeah, in the sense of cause and effect. Like, okay, this idea, that's part of the presentation on natural law by Mark Passio, and he touches upon the idea of human nature. What is human nature? And he takes very good examples. And just the word, what is the nature of something? Is it is a human being inherently good or inherently evil? So there are different philosophers. I think Jean-Jacques Rousseau, he postulates that human beings are born good, and somehow society perverts him. And I think Hobbes postulates the opposite. He says, okay, human nature is intrinsically evil, and society kind of corrects him, makes him into a good person. And then Mark Passio goes on to say that neither one or the other are true, because it's a question of that humans are programmable entities. So shit goes in, shit goes out, to put it shortly. And good stuff goes in, good stuff goes out. So there's a connection here with the trivium as well, of course. So this is about the human nature aspect. Oh, and he takes this example just to exemplify that it doesn't make any sense to say that something is intrinsically evil or in nature or intrinsically bad or good. He says, like, okay, I'll take this cup here. Okay, what's the nature of this cup? Well, this cup, the nature of this cup is it's made out of solids, so that the liquid that's inside of it keeps, well, that the liquid doesn't spoil, doesn't go all around everywhere. It's contained in this glass. So the glass plays the function or the role of a container. So I'm not going to say this glass is evil or it's angelic in nature, or it doesn't make sense. I think when you apply it to human beings, doesn't make more sense either. So, and
I like that the glass isn't inherently good or evil, but what is the liquid that is poured into it. But I also feel there's like the need also to challenge that allegory. Did I understand the metaphor correctly?
It's just the function itself. I didn't think about what the glass contains. This time it's water, so it's all good. No, I meant that when you ask the question, what's the nature of something? It's what's the purpose? It's asking the purpose. In French, you say, when you call somebody and the secretary picks up the phone and says, quelle est la nature? What's the nature of your call? So what's the purpose, basically? What's the function or the purpose, or what's the so yeah, human nature is what you make out of it. It's actually based on a lot of choices you make and a lot of the information you choose to take in or not to take in. That's more I would say on a more individual level, but then you could expand what everybody does, and then you get a human condition, and also that's a good another segue towards maybe the law of freedom Adrian came back with is how come why are we experiencing the decline of our freedoms?
I definitely see the relationship between the human condition and the law of freedom, which is that freedom and morality are directly proportional, or that as morality increases, freedom increases. So that the reason for the human condition being slavery is that morality is not like the majority of people aren't acting morally, that the morality is what's
Hey, Oscar, you cut out for me.
oh sorry I wanted to say that insufficiency, so that morality is insufficient, and that's the cause of freedom not being sufficient, not being manifested. And this slide here continues that true freedom can never exist in a society that embraces moral relativism. And moral relativism is the idea that there is no inherent or objective difference between right and wrong.
I remember Mark Passio touching upon this very subtle detail, but it's not the same result when people obey the law by fear of punishment and other people obeying law because they have integrated the boundaries of their rights and recognizing them to be objectively pertinent, I would say, or in lack of a better word. But it's not the same dynamic at all. Just having a bunch of fearful, obedient slaves and having people morally. When I address this in French, I would say, "Oh, la moralité mène à la liberté." I mean, that morality leads to freedom. And I say, well, just picture yourself. Okay, there are limits to what you can do and not do, and once those limits are integrated, you take them within you. You don't need anybody else outside of you to remind you constantly what the limits are. And so, in a way, they by confusing us what we can and cannot do, well, we keep them in charge. So yeah, the best step for us all is to take in those limits and acknowledge them that they have a very specific working towards our collective freedom if we if we share objective morality widespread. It's a process, ongoing process, and I don't think we'll see the end of it in our lifetimes. I don't know.
I don't get why people just don't say no and stand by that. Just to get on the same page and just use the lost word and be prepared to use lethal force.
The lost word being what?
N-O. No. I just wanted to also say, I mean, I think it's cool how the quadrivium can be birthed from the trivium as an effect. If you don't run the trivium, you don't get to the quadrivium.
That's a good point. That's a good point that they're connected to that. The trivium and the quadrivium are what constitute the 7 liberal arts. So the trivium, as we said, is grammar, logic, and rhetoric. So that's the truth discovery method. And then the quadrivium is more the truth quantification or quanticizing method. So that's how we measure truth. And those are 4 arts. It's the art of mathematics, geometry, music, and astronomy.
Yes.
I'm not a very well, like a professional investigator of the trivium, but I understood something about the trivium, the second phase, the logical phase. It's been said that the quadrivium is taken into account in the second phase because it's all a question of proportion. It gives a size, a length. So it also makes sense that it participates in your choice because it gives scales and, well, it kind of gives a proportion. So they have a proportional, it's a sense of proportion, measurement, and of course that plays a significant role in your choice making process. Processus de prise de décision. Sorry, I'm really translating constantly from French to English here.
Yeah, I feel you. I was doing the same thing. That's why I've got in my menu tab, I have a dictionary so I can quickly translate a word when it is I need to do that. But you were saying earlier on, Param, that you remember Mark Passio differentiating between obeying and understanding. And I'll bring up this slide here because you see in natural law is based upon principles and truth, and it's harmonized with due to knowledge and understanding. So people who align themselves with natural law is, first of all, it's because they have knowledge, and then they understand and act in alignment with that understanding, not because of any other reason that they understand what that will mean if they act in accordance with natural law. While man's law or man-made law is based upon dogmatic beliefs or constructs of the mind, and it's complied with, it's obeyed due to fear of punishment. So you can have the same action being done by 2 people, but they're doing it for different reasons. You can have someone who is refusing to initiate violence or to commit theft or to lie or the action can be the same, but they might be doing it for different reasons. And someone who understands natural law decides, someone who acts in alignment with what their rights are and seeks to contribute to freedom will do so because of understanding, while someone who might be doing the same action, for example, not lying or like telling someone the truth or respecting their right of property or refusing to initiate harm. They might be doing it for another reason. They might be doing it for just because they're afraid of what will happen to them, and that's a very different state of consciousness. One state of consciousness is one of love, one of understanding and wisdom and very conscious. You could say someone is coming from that expansion, the consciousness expansion, and is acting as a sovereign because they want to live in freedom. They want to manifest good and order. while someone who might be doing the same action might not be doing it for that reason. They might not even understand how refusing to contribute to violence or to harm will in the end manifest freedom. They might just be doing it to not get in trouble. And that state of consciousness is in the end one of ignorance, one of not having the guts to actually stand up for what is right. Like in another situation, they won't stand up for what is right. They're just obeying because of the fear of punishment. And that fear of punishment is, well, people will say that it's sufficient. Will say that that's good enough. That's all you need to have. You need to act a certain way so that you don't go to prison or so that you don't get in debt or something like that. But really, it isn't sufficient because people can be swayed too easily. They don't have a foundation of principles, right? I'm kind of ranting a bit, but I just felt like that this slide here was related to your point, which is why I went back to it, because it's a good distinction to keep in mind that even though natural law and man-made law can align in certain aspects, like both in natural law and man-made law, you'll have theft be a crime. You're not going to see the same state of consciousness for why people will act in alignment with it.
No, it's really on point that you brought up this chart. Although I wasn't comparing natural law to man's law, but just let's say a person that like you were taking the example of lying, and well, let's say it's a transgression because it's a form of theft. You're withdrawing information, necessary information to make enlightened decisions, right? That, regardless if it's natural law or man's law, it's just the idea that a person that restrains himself from lying could do it for two different reasons, as you just mentioned. He will say the truth out of fear that he will be frowned upon by his peers, and that he probably will be socially kicked out by his friends. I don't know. And there's another thing I wanted to throw out there. It's a French saying, and it goes like la peur de Dieu est le début de la sagesse. Okay, I'll translate. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. How do you feel about this sentence? I'll give you my take afterwards. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom.
I don't really like the wording, because I'm using the word fear in the context of consciousness being contracted. But if I don't nitpick the wording, I would phrase, and I could kind of maybe interpret the saying that it's about understanding and applying wisdom with a respect for natural law. So it's not about fearing natural law, it's about understanding it and admitting to oneself that one cannot escape it. So what was it again? That the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. Well, I think you could say that the acceptance of law, of a higher determining factor than our own free will, that our own preferences, our own wants, that's the beginning of wisdom, that we see that. And you can also take it back to epistemological objectivism, where we recognize that reality is objective. That's also the beginning of wisdom, because it's the beginning of knowledge that we admit, and we are humble enough to say there is such a thing as objective truth, and it's not what we decide it is. So, but that's not fear in the way I would use the word fear. You could call it that. You could, but I feel like this is unclear language, and it is from a religious scripture. I think it's from the Bible or something, or like some. But I won't nitpick it too much, and I'll try to condense like what it's saying, which is, again, this. I think what it's saying is that by not putting ourselves over God or over natural law, we begin our journey towards wisdom and alignment with it, which is only possible with that acceptance, with that acknowledgement of it. Mm-hmm.
Adrian, you wanna? Do you like this?
If you could repeat it.
The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom.
I could understand why it's a saying. Like, it's like you're respecting God, and you are inclined to naturally to go into the understanding of the workings of nature. So with the respect to God, in a way, yeah, I'm like, I can be scared of God in a way, but I'm more inspired by it, if that makes sense.
Word.
Yes.
Another question you had, Adrian, was how causality relates to programmability, or the nature of humans, which is that we're programmable, and that's we kind of went a bit into that, talking about whether or not human nature is good or evil, and instead we should consider it as programmable, as just the operating conditions, or the way we, like the environment in which human beings exist influences our behavior to a great extent, thus creating our condition. But it's not that we're inherently good or evil that is the cause for why we are in the mess we're in. So this idea of programmability, that we're basically receiving the culture or the teachings from our elders or from our environments, and then we ourselves become that teacher. But how conscious are we in that process? Are we questioning what we're taught, and are we making sure to contribute with what we have learned in that process, or do we just stay silent? I mean, the thing you were saying before, Param, about that peers would ridicule you, or would look down on you if you were lying. That's how it's supposed. That's how it should be, right? But sadly, the fact of the matter is that right now it's very different. People will not ridicule you for coming for refraining from adding your own knowledge. As soon as you do that, that becomes not very dangerous, but it becomes a situation where you might lose a lot of relationships, of friendships, because the truth that you're saying isn't in alignment with what they're receptive with. So we want to, I think this image here is a cool image, because we want to be both hands. We want to keep being receptive, so that the people around us can tell us what is happening from their perspective. But we also want to be the ones giving the flower, or giving our observations. And obviously, the latter requires experience. It's not something we just, like, we're not born with knowledge. It's something we need to seek. And again, that's how it relates to the trivia method, right? And the choice to seek truth. I also thought we could read a bit of the KYBALION together? Are you up for that?
Yeah.
Can I shortly just give my take on that little saying, la peur, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom?
Please.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think the word God is also a kind of with the word God, I don't know how many people relate to the word God that way, but I think a lot see this old white beard dude on his cloud and pulling the strings. And I remember Mark PASSIO saying that natural law is an unpersonal force. So there already it's kind of a little touchy to just represent God as a punisher. And as to your point, Oscar, I don't think God is trying to instigate fear as a polarity we could build upon. So in both ways, I don't think it's. I think it's a problem of how it's been phrased. And yeah, for two reasons, this the word God, and because it's actually not God. It's we could, if we have to fear something, or at least something we have to acknowledge, is the rules that have been put into place, and we can't escape. And well, we have to acknowledge and be aware of what. Yeah, like in a game, there's a board, and you can't step outside of the board. It's you're off the game. Okay,
if you don't like the effects, don't produce the cause. If you don't want to be smashed by this domino, don't push the other one. It's nothing personal. It's not
exactly
a punishment in the sense that it's someone out to get you, but it is a punishment in the sense that we deserve what we get, because we're receiving the result of our actions, and I think there's need to clarify a bit of the details there, because there are people born in poverty or in need and want, and people who are not, and that's not really what I'm referring to here, even though you could look at it in a way and say that is what I'm referring to, because where that's a manifested chaos, if you will, that people that are denied certain possibilities are denied those possibilities. And you can look again at causality, seeing that it's all happening because of control. Control is creating that condition. So yeah, in a way, yeah, you could look at that, but you could say those individuals aren't necessarily and that's again understanding how reality is created. We have to look beyond just our own actions and see it's the actions that are happening collectively, that it's human behavior as a whole, aggregated behavior is creating the condition. So if the majority of people are believing in authority because they're ignoring their own personal sovereignty and their own rights and the truth that no one has the right to rule others, then in that state of confusion, that's where control is expressed in the external, and that denial of opportunities, that limitation of human value or of individual value is manifested.
Do you remember when Mark PASSIO exemplifies on the idea that natural law is an impersonal force? He takes this example of a couple with a child, and the couple are just having a picnic, and nearby there's a big cliff goes down, and this little girl, the parents are not aware that the little girl is walking away. Well, gravity works. Even if she's nascent, unguilty, innocent, natural law works flawlessly, even for this little child.
Well, I feel like I was a bit that little child, even though I was a child, but a teenager, but still, you know, a kid. And yeah, natural law works flawlessly. I'll bring up the text because I feel it's also related a bit to what we're talking about. Are you up for reading it, Adrian?
Nah.
All right. Do you want to do it, Param, or I'll give it a go?
Okay. The majority of people are more or less the slaves of heredity, environment, etc., and manifest very little freedom. They are swayed by the opinions, customs, and thoughts of the outside world, and also by their emotions, feelings, moods, etc. They manifest no mastery worthy of the name. They indignantly repudiate this assertion, saying, "Why, I certainly am free to act and do as I please. I do just what I want to do." But they fail to explain whence arise the want to and as I please. What makes them want to do one thing in preference to another? What makes them please to do this and not to do that? Is there no because? Oh, I can't see the rest. It's hidden by. Could you read the last sentence? It's hidden by the screen. Oh, there it is. Because to their pleasing and wanting.
Is there no why? Then the book also says, we do not wish to enter into a consideration of free will or determinism in this work for various reasons. Among the many reasons is the principal one, that neither side of the controversy is entirely right. According to the Hermetic teachings, the principle of polarity shows that both are but half-truths, the opposing poles of truth. The teachings are that a man may be both free and yet bound by necessity. So this ties into a worldview schism of, is everything random or is everything determined? And the reason that in the graph there are two brain hemispheres is because it's related to a brain hemisphere imbalance. So the left brain hemisphere is very much related to our linear thinking, our more logical thinking, and is generally responsible for our ability to think in mathematics. The higher thought thinking that is related to, you could say, language, and of course we're generalizing here. It's not that they're separated, but generally speaking, that's what the left brain hemisphere is responsible for. And then the right brain hemisphere is more responsible for the higher thought thinking functions such as creativity and empathy. And so why are those in the background of this worldview schism? So the randomness and the determinism are generally endorsed by different people. The people who believe that everything is just a matter of mere chance, a kind of a cosmic accident, or like that everything is random. They also tend to have an idea that there is no God, that there is no, what could you say, like there is no higher force than human beings, that we're kind of like the pinnacle. And it might also be like not a very holistic worldview, a very maybe materialistic worldview, where it's where just everything is just matter. Everything is there's and consciousness is just like this, it just randomly appeared, that there is no underlying intelligence in nature, that there's no consciousness in nature. Of course, I'm generalizing here. I'm just trying to explain the diagram, and I don't have to, but is it okay that I'm doing that? What I feel like
it ties into what we're talking about. If it ties into what we're talking about, then it's okay.
No, we're talking. We touched upon human nature, and this is a good example of it. It's like those imbalances. The two imbalances, the schisms, right? The two schisms.
Yeah, one schism is the idea that everything is just, there's no free will, because everything is just causation. Everything is just like that there's, in a way, a kind of, you could say, fate, or a way of like both in a way are kind of saying that in the extreme part, because there's no self to choose. There's no choice. It's all just causality. It's all like every decision you make is happening because of your, like, your wants and your pleasures, like your desires aren't really something that you're in control of. That's what it was saying here, right? It was saying, is there no because to their pleasing and wanting? And what the KYBALION is trying to teach is that the master is able to control his own moods, control the internal qualities. He is able to will things by just willing them, and that is related, I think, to this schism of randomness or determinism, because we want to acknowledge, as the Hermetic text is saying, the truth in the deterministic statement, or the position that everything is deterministic. There is truth in that everything is related to a deterministic component, which is natural law. Yet we also want to move on from that and say, even though there is this natural law, we are agents. We are able to interact with this, and that's through the randomness component, our free will.
I see. It's like a way you operate in being an agent of truth. How you can affect change somehow by balancing these brain hemispheres.
Exactly. And we do that by, there's also a cause for that balance. We need to be able to engage both both types of thinking, both our hemispheres. If we're only using one the majority of the time, the other is going to become it's going to atrophy, if you will. I mean, that's not really scientific that it's going to atrophy, but it's going, like, you're going to create a pattern in your like neural pathways, or like that, where the majority of the time you're thinking in a certain way, and it becomes more difficult for you to think in a different manner. So yeah, we want to balance our brain hemispheres by both engaging in that linear thinking, the mathematical, the logical, the linear, and also not only just concentrating on that, but being able to have a more holistic model of thought, being able to meditate, and so.
I find it really interesting that you suggest the principle of cause and consequence on this on the individual level, as to how come, from what caused people to develop those brain imbalances. One that perceives life through the reptilian brain, survival mode, and the other one is more the seeing everything through the limbic brain and over emotional. And so I think it's really really interesting to have mentioned that as the consequence, and more certainly induced. Induced, because it's also called the slave mindset and the master mindset in another slide. And of course, if free will doesn't exist, like on the it's on my right side, free will doesn't exist. I hear it from Islam people say, "Oh, inshallah." I mean, if God wills, okay, it's like, oh. We can't plan anything. God decides everything. It's a bit of a stretch, but a bit of a caricature. But it's a very religious mindset, and the other one is more a scientist worldview. Yep.
Exactly. And yeah, so this is again a talk about, about free will, and free will is something that is very much obfuscated. I'll just remove this image here. Because if we look again at this graph and we say, oh, it's so unfair that this domino is falling on me, and we're not looking at, well, the personal accountability, the culpability, who's to blame for it, then we're lying, we're deceiving ourselves. And there's an interest in that if you don't want to put into the effort of learning truth, of developing your conscience, of exercising your rights and respecting the rights of others, of growing wise, that's not something that just happens automatically. Sorry.
Another example, illustration, I would say, of what we could use as the principle of cause and effect is the tree of fear. You remember that one?
Yeah, exactly. Very much tied into the culpability of who is to blame. So it's the cycle of abuse. I think it's called. Let's see if I can find the slide here. I don't know if I can find it, but basically it's related to how we need to develop knowledge, understanding, and care, and the will to heal if we don't want to repeat an endless cycle of abuse.
Yeah, and like the best position to be is to apply that care, knowledge, and understanding to yourself. And that's like one of the only spots that has the green, where everything is red. You either identify as the abuser or the victim, or you end up finding that middle red. You abuse yourself.
Yeah, found the slide. Maybe you can go through it again, Adrian or Bram.
I'll go through it. I mean, like, let's say, for example, like some sort of traumatic or chronic abuse occurs. You could liken it to your own story, whatever comes up to mind. Like, you can lean more to the left or the right, or I I'd highly recommend you do your best to get to the middle. Obviously, the experiencer is healed through applied knowledge, care, and will. Whereas if you lean more to the left, you will identify with the abuser. Negative emotions turn outward. Experiencer becomes the abuser. And then you could either be, bottom middle or bottom left, experiencer abuses the self, or you could abuse others, you know, all because of that traumatic or chronic abuse occurs. Fill in the blank, like fill in the blank. Maybe abusive parent, maybe somebody betrayed you, some Judas appears, maybe you have to deal with the cops. I hate that one, but then you could either identify with the victim. Negative emotions turn inward, whereas if you identify with the abuser, it turns outward. And experiencer becomes victim, and yeah, you could inflict harm upon yourself, or you are victimized by others, but really by yourself. And it's a choice depending on your circumstances. I would say with the knowledge, once you grow out in essence, it's always a choice.
Yes. And it's also a choice that gets us out of nations. Both the teacher is choosing to educate, but also the student is choosing to be receptive. Receptive. What are you showing, Param? L'arbre de la peur, the tree of fear. Oh, okay. So I see you're talking about another.
Yeah, les racines, le tronc, les branches, les feuilles. It's it's another one, but the abused cycle is a very good example too. But this one is a little shorter. It's just the idea that, oh, how come people are willingly ignorant? And well, then you start looking for the cause of that, and that it brings you to the question of responsibility. That people don't want to be responsible for the personal responsibility, owning their personal responsibility. And why do they don't want to exercise or take upon personal responsibility? Because they don't love themselves. They're in a self-loathing. And why don't they love themselves? Well, they've been going through abandonment issues. So they think, well, unconsciously, oh, since my parents didn't give me the love I expected, that means I wasn't, I didn't mériter. I didn't, how do you say merit? I didn't
deserve.
Yeah, right. So there's something in the unconscious mind that says, oh, they abandoned me because I didn't deserve their care and attention. So then it's, then the causal factors, well, it's like
it's identifying with the victim, and that's very often what happens, right? It's what happens with children when, like, they internalize the story of them being unworthy. They don't learn, wait, something wrong is happening or is being done to me. It's oh, there's something wrong with me. It's and it's really good to know this, and I mean, again, this slide also kind of relates to the idea people have of abusers. Like, we can understand abusers because we say, well, they've been victims themselves, right? But we shouldn't excuse that. We shouldn't excuse abuse. I like that rhymes. I'll remember that. But of course we can understand it. That's not the same as tolerating evil. That we can understand that evil is what happens when we don't apply knowledge, care, and will. When we just identify with being an abuser or being a victim. It's this, you could say it like it's like a ladder or like a hierarchy where people are willing to step over others, or like climb the hierarchy of dominance. Sorry, it's all this tea I'm drinking. I have to burp all the time.
Right. I hear you. I mean, it's like a dark triad kind of hierarchy kind of thing.
To your point, Oscar, yeah, of course, the abused, if they become abuser, okay, but if you know their history, it doesn't mean you have to like understanding them doesn't mean to tolerate or to excuse them. There's a friend of Mark Passio's, I can't remember his name, but he went through. He's born in a multi-generational satanic, and he's been abused. Like I just hearing all he went through is like
Jay Parker.
Exactly, yeah. So he's really a good example of this green experiencer is healed through applied knowledge, care, and will. He must have had quite a bit of a willpower there. Yeah.
If people want to check out Jay Parker, I think his website is called The Center Path. The Center Path. And hey, that's probably related to this slide right here, right? The Center Path. And while we're on the topic of cycles, I think we can definitely also connect what we talked about last week when we were talking about rhythm with cycles. That one event is the cause of the next one, and so on and so on, and that there's a cycle in that. I think, of course, we shouldn't conclude then that everything is just a loop, everything is just repetitive, that there's no motion forward. We can only conclude that if we don't understand how we ourselves can use the law of or how we can align with the law of causality. Then if we do that, we are able to be movers and not just pawns or instruments of it. And yeah, the thing about cycles as well, relating it back to causality, there's the whole thing about climate change. What causes climate change? And there's a graph here where they took samples from the Antarctic ice. Like they dug in and they could see, they can basically look back in time by studying what they find in these samples. And what they can find tells them something about how the world looked for like a very long time ago, like thousands of years ago, 100,000s of years ago. So this graph here is, you see on top, it says the temperature variation and then also the CO2 concentration. So these are two different datas. One is telling you how hot it is. That's the blue one. It's telling you how warm it was on the planet. And then the CO2 concentration, well, I don't think I need to explain that really. It's just telling you, it's the red one, and it's telling you the amount of carbon dioxide there is in the atmosphere. And what we're seeing is that these two datas, or like the red and the blue line, are like aligning to a high degree, right? They're very much fluctuating in hand. But if you look very closely, you'll see that the temperature variation, which is here illustrated with the blue line, actually precedes the CO2 concentration. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm some master meteorologist or whatever it's called. No, not anthropo. What's it called? no, I don't remember. Like when you're looking at not just meteorology, but you're looking at it paleo something, where you're looking at it from like a huge thing. I haven't studied this, but the point I'm trying to make is that there's a relationship between cycles and the cause of climate change. And what is that relationship? The relationship is that with temperature increasing, when temperature rises, there you see that there's also a higher carbon dioxide concentration. Does that mean that the temperature increase is actually causing the CO2 concentration? That's the theory that I'm proposing here, and I'm not saying it's my theory. It's something I've heard or found, but I think it makes sense that if you look at the oceans as kind of like the Earth's lymphatic system, each time the temperature rises, the carbon dioxide is released from the oceans into the atmosphere, and vice versa. Every time the temperature is lowered or is decreasing, the carbon dioxide is absorbed by the oceans, and that's a theory that's kind of opposing the general or the mainstream idea that the cause of temperature increasing is the amount of carbon dioxide.
Yeah, and us humans and cows farting too much. Oh, that's the consensus.
And I mean, if you look at the size of the sun, I mean, it might be distant, but if you look at the size of our star in our solar system, that must have a very big influence on the temperature. And there's also cycles in the ice ages. Like if I bring back the slide here, you'll see that there's a rhythm, right? There's like, wait, if I go like this, around 320 or 30 years before the present, there's like a spike in temperature and carbon dioxide, and that happens again. What is that? 240,000 years before present, and also one more time around 130, and then also you see that. What is that? That's 10,000 or so years before present. So you see that there's like a rhythm in that. There's a cycle, to bring it back to the topic we were speaking about last time. So that the fact that temperature is going up and down isn't something we should necessarily be afraid of.
I find very interesting that you point out that eventually, on the graph, you could see that the temperature changes before the CO2 concentration. So, and they're trying to make us believe that the other is causing the previous, the latter, right? It's not the CO2 growing up that changes the temperature, but the other way around. And you could pull up another graph with, I don't know, different des maladies, the viruses or flus, and that start waning down. People are getting less and less sick, and then they push the vaccines, and they make us think that the vaccines are responsible for the decrease of cases.
Do you have more information about that study or that statistic? Is there any source that I could or where I could, like a hint, a clue to where I could find that?
No, well, this is touchy, huh? I think it's still touchy subject.
Well, I mean, it's okay that the subject is touchy. I'm just curious about this graph that you're talking about, like a statistic where you can see the the health in individuals, and or like the cases of sickness, and also then the amount of vaccinations, and comparing those two. And I mean, again, when I'm comparing this here, I'm being very clear that this is what I'm proposing as a theory, that it's the other way around, that it's not true that the CO2 concentration is causing the temperature variation, that it might actually be vice versa. I'm stating that as a theory. I mean, it could be something else entirely, like, again, correlation and causation are two different relationships. Causation means that one event is causing the other event, or is the other event requires the prior event. Correlation means that those two are happening simultaneously or hand in hand, but it's not really specifying whether or not it's because of the one event that the other happens. Where when we're talking about the vaccines, I'm guessing you're talking about the COVID-19 vaccines. When we're talking about whether or not those caused illness, it is not really possible, from the data I've gathered, to actually make a claim regarding that, and that's the problem. The problem is that there's not really enough like studying and data, or like controlled studies, right? And I mean, I'm not ruling it out, but at the end of the day, when it comes to that topic, the reason it might be so touchy is because there's not enough data. People are forming their opinions on the subject without really having enough knowledge, and that's why it becomes so touchy, because people really have to admit that their opinions are based on nothing, but like nothing that really constitutes as good enough evidence, as sufficient evidence. That's not to say that people are wrong, whatever stance they take, but if they don't have the evidence to prove what they're saying, that's a problem, and that's something everyone can unite about. Is we need more study or knowledge regarding what actually is causing the illnesses. Is it a virus? Is it toxicity in the environment, or is it these inoculations that weren't really vaccines? And now I'm maybe beginning to rant a bit, but I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing up touchy subjects. I think it's perfect to bring it up when we're talking about causation. I mean, you could bring up 9/11, and that's more than 20 years ago, and people will still find that a touchy subject, because what actually caused the Twin Towers to collapse, the cause for that is, of the three towers, as you said. I like that, how that was very, very discreet. I love that. Thanks for making me laugh.
You're welcome. Yeah, well, of course, I don't have evidence. I wasn't referring to the COVID thing, because of course with this we don't really have enough recul back. No, I was talking about other, but then can't remember which. But it's a good example of where people should share, embrace doubt concerning what caused this, or maybe it's the other way around, and. But there's, I heard about this author pointing out that this disease is waning down. And they put out a vaccine, and they claim, the vaccine did it, and they did it multiple times.
I think I know a graph that actually shows that. It shows the decrease in polio and the rollout of the beginning of the inoculation of polio, and the latter actually came after the cases of polio decreased. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find that right now because I don't think I have it saved. I would have to look that up, but I might share that in the Telegram forum we have called Europa Natural Law. Everyone is welcome to join that and share in the conversation. Although, be advised, be warned, you might not like it. So I thought I was gonna bring up a video, unless you have anyone has a point, and it's a video of Mark Passio describing the cause and effect principle in his natural law seminar. Let me know if you're up for that.
I'm up for it. I will say really quickly, I mean, like, you can tell when somebody knows something versus somebody forming an opinion on the spot. It's like a language of veritas. But that's all I have to say right now.
Cool. Well, I think we should watch the video and then respond to some comments, and hopefully people won't feel like we just made up opinions on the spot, that we actually shared some knowledge, and please feel free, everybody, to also share some of your knowledge in the comment section, and we'll get to that after we watch this video. It's a longer video. I think it's, let me see how long it is. It is 15 minutes long. 15 minutes. Well, you said yes, and there's no turning back. Here we go.
Principle here in natural law that most fits in with how I'm using the term natural law today: cause and effect. Many people, again, in the New Age community, don't want to believe that there's causes and effects, and that effects are driven by causes that, come first and then manifest conditions. So the principle of cause and effect simply states that every cause has its effect and every effect has its cause. Every single thing that occurs happens according to law. All right? Chance is a name for law, a law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. So again, is there free will? Yes, there is free will. But is there free will to ignore law without consequence? No, there is not. That's the limit of free will. Free will is operating within boundary conditions that I'm referring to as natural law. It's a series of laws, actually. Okay? Free will operates within these parameters or boundary conditions that cannot be exceeded or gone beyond without consequence. Oh yeah, you can break natural law. Yes, you can break it, but you cannot break it without consequence. You cannot break it without consequence, negative consequence. And that's why this body of knowledge has in the past been referred to as consequentialism. It is the knowledge of how consequences are generated by our free will decision-making processes within the boundaries of natural law. So this is the law of cause and effect, the principle of cause and effect. And I think this image, I was searching for images that encapsulate cause and effect, and I found this cartoon. I think it does it brilliantly. Most of all, because will the effect happen immediately? No, it will not happen immediately. There is a time lag. You set the cause into motion. The universe is going to intelligently bring to you, through a rearrangement of all the dynamics that it needs to rearrange, the effect of what you've generated by setting that cause into motion. And there is a time gap between the cause going into place and the effect coming around and hitting you. This is why the pattern recognition of cause and effect is more difficult, because it is separated by a time lag, by what we perceive as linear time. Now, if you did a wrong to somebody and immediately you were stung by a wasp, every single time you did a wrong to somebody, it showed up and bit you immediately within 2 seconds of you hurting somebody, stealing from somebody, lying to somebody, etc. Would you start to connect the stinging to the wrong that you did, I think most people would see the pattern. They would recognize the pattern. But since that doesn't happen, and there's a time lag to experiencing something harmful to ourselves once we do something harmful to other people, it's very difficult for people to see the connection through the time lag. And moreover, it doesn't exactly happen in a one-to-one ratio like this, okay? It's more, karmic consequence is more complicated than all of that, all right? What's happening is that all of us are experiencing in the aggregate the wrongs that the human species is conducting on a daily basis, which we do not attempt to rectify and stop through our inaction. Karma is being accrued. People think that karma can only be accrued from action. No, it cannot. It can be accrued from inaction as well. And that's where many people in our society is. They're not taking any action, and they're willing to let evil run unchecked. So this is ultimately going to come back and bite us, you know, and what we set into motion is going to actually topple over onto us if we don't change our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. So nothing escapes law. We are bound by it eternally. You know, let me just go back. I'll leave it on this slide for a moment. You know, for some people familiar with my work, you've seen me break down the Matrix trilogy. And the law of cause and effect is brought forward extensively in the second Matrix movie, The Matrix Reloaded. And the scene that encapsulates this the most is the character of the Merovingian, who tells to the heroes who want to be free from the Matrix and its control, okay? You are coming to me without an understanding of why you are in this position. You don't understand the causal factors that have led to the current conditions that are in place. Therefore, you are coming to me with no power to effect change. You are powerless. So why should I help you? You're powerless because you lack knowledge and understanding of what set these events into motion. Why? The question why, he says, why is the only source of real power. Without why, you are powerless. He's talking about cause and effect, and he says it specifically. Causality, he calls the only real truth. And this is the villain. The words of truth come through it's a big technique in Hollywood too. The words of truth are spoken by the villain in the movie or in the series. Okay? But if you listen, and there is a twist, a dark twist to what he says. He says free will is like an illusion. No, it is not. That's where the dark occultist is trying to trip up the heroes. There are both free will and natural law. He tries to say free will. The Morpheus character says to him, everything starts with choice. And Morpheus is correct. Our choices set that causality into motion before it becomes an effect. And the Merovingian tries to tell him, no, there is no free will. That's where the dark occultist will give you the bulk of truth and then poison it with that one thing he wants to get you to accept. Okay? So, the next thing that needs to be understood is the two planes. All right? There's the plane of effects, and then there's the plane of causes. No power to affect any change lies on the plane of effects, which is the physical manifested reality. Again, what already is, nothing can be done about. What already is, you cannot change. You cannot change the past. You can change what it is starting now.
Whoops. I accidentally paused the video, but it's because there was a comment I wanted to bring up, but we'll get to that later. Sorry.
Make sure that it gets changed in the future. But you cannot change the past. You can change what it is starting now and make sure that it gets changed in the future. But right now, what is the truth, and all you could do is accept that or reject it. You can't change the past. So the physical world that is manifested up to this point happened because of things that occurred in the past. The causes happened in the past. Nothing you can do about that right now. Okay? The plane of effects, or the physical world, is where manifested realities have already occurred have already taken shape, have already formed, due to their underlying causal factors. The plane of effects constitutes that which has already occurred. As such, no power to effect change lies here, because that which has already occurred cannot unoccur. That which has occurred can't undo itself. It happened, it's already done. It has become that which is, or truth. Human consciousness seems to be trapped upon the plane of effects, meaning that humanity as a whole remains ignorant of the underlying causes which they themselves have set into motion and which lead to self-inflicted suffering in their lives. So if you're trapped at this level, what you're doing is you're looking at the symptoms, and you're stuck looking at the symptoms. Okay? This is everybody. Oh, there's a political solution to this. We need to vote in the right people. Oh, there's a financial solution to this. We just need to set the right monetary policy. No, there's a scientific solution to this. And technological advancements are going to be made that suddenly save ourselves and make the world any different. And they think all of this is going to be done while slavery is still in place. Well, again, good luck with that. And let me know how it works out. Okay? I speak at free energy related events. I work with the Tesla Science Foundation. I speak at MUFON-related events that talk about disclosure of extraterrestrial presence, okay? Both of these communities don't understand. The things that they say they want are impossible. And I'm going to start talking about them in this way more openly, you know, because I've kind of like given them some soft teachings, and I think they need to hear it a little bit more harshly, because both of these communities are not talking about morality to the extent that they need to. They think we're going to have free energy, but nothing's going to change as far as the social structure of the world goes. We'll just develop free energy and that'll magically save us. We'll still have slavery, but free energy will be here and the world will be a magically better place. The UFO community, they often think, oh, we're going to get disclosure. They're going to come out and tell us everything we know about other intelligences that are out there in the galaxy and in the universe with us, okay? And they think they're going to get that in a climate of slavery. Well, good luck with all those things. You got to take down the existing structure first, okay? People think, oh, we got to build the new world while the old one decays. You have to destroy the existing power structure with the power of truth before anything new is going to grow here. Because this place is a garden full of weeds, of poisoned ideologies and completely erroneous belief systems that have no bearing on truth whatsoever and cannot get us what we say we want. Until that those thoughts are changed, don't expect the results you want. So to the free energy movement, I say you're never going to get free energy in a climate of slavery. To the UFO community, I say you will never get disclosure in a climate of slavery. Slavery has to end first. Then you could get what you say you want. So, again, no power to effect any change lies in the world of effects. Cannot be done. You are rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic while it sinks. You're not creating any change doing those things because the underlying causes aren't changing. And the underlying causes are how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. And no one wants to look at that. They want to think all those things can stay in place and I could magically get what I want. I want to keep my hand over the fire, but I don't want it to burn and blister. Well, enjoy. See, find out what you get when you do that. Because that's what we're doing when it comes to natural law. So let's look at the plane of causality. This is the other plane. This is the mental realm, the mental world. Again, according to the law of mentalism, the first principle of natural law, everything that manifests must first manifest in mind before it can manifest physically. So again, if the plane of causality is the mental world that's generating the causes in mind, okay, everything is happening there first, and then it is trickling down to the physical domain. It is manifesting in the physical domain only after it has manifested in the mental world. The plane of causality is where causes are set into motion prior to those causes manifesting as formed realities in the plane of effects. This plane of causality constitutes the causal factors the why, which underlies and precedes all manifested things and events. All power to effect change lies on this plane of reality. Human consciousness must move away from the plane of effects and to the plane of causality in order for human beings to understand the causal factors of the conditions which they are collectively manifesting in their lives. Only then will humanity be able to co-create their shared reality on a conscious level, meaning with an understanding of how natural law operates, rather than on an unconscious level, meaning that we don't understand how natural law operates. And I just look at it in a simple graphic, in a simple, chart or graph. This is the higher realm. This is the world of causality, the mental world, the why, the underlying causal factors, okay, that precede conditions which are manifested. This is where our consciousness has to go, because this is where all power to effect change is at, in the understanding of why that manifested to begin with. So these are the symptoms. This line could be looked at as the diagnosis. You have to make that diagnosis and get to the underlying causal factors that lead to the symptoms. Okay? The plane of effects, on the other hand, meaning the physical world, is the manifested realm. That which has already occurred, that cannot be undone. At least in the present moment. You could start in the present to undo it in the future. But as far as the present moment and all moments in the past go, you're not changing that. That's truth. That's what is. Okay? That's already manifested. You can't change it. No power to effect change lies in continuously analyzing the symptoms. You got to do that long enough that you know where the problem's at. You've made the diagnosis. Now you can get to the causal factors and start going to work changing those causes. Okay? Unfortunately, this plane, the plane of effect, seems to be where human consciousness in the aggregate is trapped. It can't seem to get past there. Even if it recognizes the problem, it wants to keep describing the problem. It wants to keep describing the prison. It doesn't want to look at the causal factors because it's afraid of what the causal factors are. It doesn't want to acknowledge the causal factors lie in how we think, feel, and act, and until those things are changed, the external manifestation cannot change. That takes responsibility.
That takes responsibility. Wow. Yeah, that was a 15-minute long video. Thanks for everyone for sticking through that. And obviously, we've already mentioned a lot of what Mark PASSIO says here in this video, which is a snippet of his natural law seminar, all about how the real law of attraction works, how we as a society or in the aggregate manifest and create that which we want to, or we manifest that which we ask for, basically, with our actions. I feel like we're gonna, I promised that we'd look at some comments.
Yeah, let's take some comments or some questions. I just want to touch upon, because to expand on what he just said, I remember also him, Mark, alluding to this other allegory of, well, could be the allegory of the cave, Plato's cave. You know, people tied and watching the screen, watching what's projected in the back of the cave. And he also used this other example, which is pretty similar. It's picture an audience in front of a screen, and and then there's different categories. Well, people are just obediently watching the screen without complaining, and some are somewhat complaining, and some are even going up to the screen and hitting the screen. And it's a good example of how you cannot change the plane of effects. And eventually, the last person, like in the Plato's cave, he goes all the way back to the room where the projector is. And of course, it speaks volumes to how if you want to change the movie that's projected on the screen, well, you have to go to the projector's room, and which is the realm, allegorically, the realm of ideas, or the realm of causality. And what's projected on the screen is the cause, is the plane of effects, which you cannot change. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah. You don't have to rush it. I mean, that's a great thing to bring up, the allegory of the cave, an allegory told by Plato.
Yeah, I made a drawing. I can't find it, but next time I'll provide some drawings beforehand.
But I'm really glad you brought it up. It's this dynamic that we see playing out, where people will be angry at the, what can you say, like at the screen, like it's as if they're watching a movie, but they're just screaming at the projector. They hate the movie, but they don't realize that they are both the projector and the experiencer of the screen. So they're stuck kind of in the plane of effects.
Yeah. Oh, and then I think the Plato's cave allegory goes a little further, and he the hero, he makes the hero's journey, and he comes back to his fellow human beings that are still in this enslaved conditions, and he tries to awaken them. And you remember the saying of Gustave Le Bon, the crowds?
Yeah, people hate the
Disregard.
truth.
Yeah, and he who can provide illusions will easily become their masters, and he who tries to disillusion, will break the illusions, will be their victims of the crowds. So it's also this other dynamic of, once you've done the hero's journey, well, the hardest task is to do the great work, which is to influence change in others, which is the allegory also touches upon. I'm ready for the. Are we ready for Bubbly Pop? Adrian, you still here?
No. Hey.
You're not.
No, but I wanted to say, like, yeah, like I like the allegory, and I usually liken it to the metamorphosis of a butterfly, or maybe coming out of the thrall into enlightenment.
Yeah, I love the butterfly or the insects that go through that metamorphosis, which is also totally related to the cycles, the topic about rhythm. We kind of touched lightly upon that last time.
I think it's a good example of reincarnation as well.
But yeah, we are responsible, and that tree of evil that you mentioned before kind of also explains this dynamic, right? Where people don't want to, they fear personal responsibility, because of abandonment issues. They're basically still psychological children who don't understand that their own role in creating what we collectively experience. Okay, I'll bring up some comments. This was one that I accidentally brought up earlier. It was because it was basically the same thing that was being said in the video, so I thought I could maybe overlay it while the video was playing, but I was wrong. So thank you, Yvonne, for this comment, where you write that the difference between cause and effect is that you can never change an effect. You can only change the cause, and we will experience the effects. We will then experience the effects we want to experience. Someone is writing in the comment section that we miss you, Yvonne, and ain't that the truth? We do miss you. But yeah, again, our power lies in the realm of causes. Someone was writing in relationship to when we talked about the causality or the correlation between vaccinations and illnesses. This comment here that I can't really confirm because I haven't looked into it. Then someone is writing that natural law is the consequences we get for doing harm.
Or good.
I don't know. I don't think natural law is the consequence. I think it's what brings us the consequence. If I don't want to be too nitpicky, but the consequences is the. I mean, it's what natural law brings us. It's the fact that there are consequences is natural law.
Sorry to interrupt you really quickly. Mark Passo just nailed it again with a small detail, which is pretty important, is that we don't necessarily cause harm or enable harm in the world by doing things, but also by not doing things. And that's the most, and I think this may probably the majority is not actually doing harm, but it's condoning harm, and that brings us where we are now.
And it's always easier to say, oh, we should have done something, right? Or oh, we shouldn't have done that. When we look back, like you've seen many examples in history where so much suffering could have been averted if people had refused to allow harm. So history is a really good source for exploring this topic. The topic being causality, because to a big degree we are shaped by what has happened in the past, by the thinkers and the movers of the past. So learning about history is a must if we want to orient ourselves and know where we're standing. That doesn't mean that we're slaves of the past. Of course, there's always choice in the present.
How would you translate il y a plus de danger? Non. Il y a plus dangereux que les bruits de bottes, c'est le bruissement des pantoufles. There's something more dangerous than the noise of boots, than the what is called a house shoes. It's just meaning that, okay, there's a little bunch of doing great harm, but there's a lot of people staying silent. In French, you also say who doesn't say no consents, in a way.
That's a Latin maxim in law, is that silence is consent, or like that. Also, ignorance is no excuse. That if you don't know the way law operates, that's no excuse for you to you're not exempt of it. Something different, though.
Qui ne dit mot consent. That's what it was. He who doesn't word out his thoughts consents. Well, gives consent. More comments?
I don't really understand what this means. Correct complacency is harm.
Correct, comma, complacency is harm. To condone is harm.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay, correct. Complacency is harm. I see now. Yeah, the importance of grammar. That grammar could have caused a misunderstanding, but Param to the rescue. Your yeah, your understanding. And then
Syntax.
it takes shadow work to stop being complacent. Yeah, I definitely have to agree with that. It does take shadow work, or the it takes the ability to have, like, you need to develop the courage to refuse doing harm, even though that negative consequences might follow from that for yourself. For example, taking up the COVID times, the lockdowns, it does take a lot of shadow work, I think, to be able to refuse or to stand on your principles when the whole world, and I mean the whole world, is telling you that your love of yourself, in the sense of love of your own rights and exercising your rights, is selfish and is something to be ridiculed, and your possibilities of partaking in social life are limited because you don't have a mask, or you don't have a vaccine passport and such. So we're not really living in a world where a lot of people have done that shadow work, unfortunately. And I think if we look at something that is causing the lack of healing that is required for standing up for what is right, something that is causing that is the association of health or mental health with normal, like normalcy. I don't know how to say that. The fact that normality. No, I don't know how to say that word. I think you know what I'm saying. That we associate being functional, or like being normal, or being basically disassociated from all the sorrow that you carry as a sign of health, as, oh, you're doing well. Where we look at someone who is grieving, or someone who is in touch with their anger, or in touch with their sadness and the negative emotions that are connected with loss and such, as being something to move on from, or something to be fixed. So if there's a vision for health, it would be a vision of people, of like a mass grieving, of people honoring the healing process, of honoring, that process of going towards those stages of acknowledgement and of depression and of grieving.
If it were more readily taught in schools as well, along with many places where you're influenced, like the television, radio, internet, I mean, it's just a chain of effect that happens from choosing to become a better person, is when you're influenced, and then you can seek out methods to do the shadow work and ultimately become part of the solution.
Exactly. Before we're really going to be great teachers, we need the personal experience of having gone down to hell. And I have to be the asshole here, Adrian, because you say, yeah, it should be taught in school, and I feel that's a bit like this guy. It should someone should do this. I don't want to make a straw man of what you're saying, but I just feel that that's something you hear people say. Yeah, when they agree with you, they say, yeah, teachers should learn that. But then the way they phrase it is, they should learn that in school, and of course they're not necessarily meaning in state indoctrination camps, but that's the association I get. Is like, yeah, why isn't this being done? This should be done. Like, well, what are you doing to do that? And I don't want to make a straw man of what you're saying, because I feel what you're saying is this is a valuable, like the healing tools are a valuable tool set to teach children, and that if we as the elders are able to give those tools to children, that would be very, very good. So don't mean make a straw man of what you're saying, but I still wanted to be the asshole saying, yo, it's not others' responsibility. Not that that was your point, but
yeah, what I'll say to that is just simply, the recognition that instead of like yelling at the screen, you go to where the projector is and you change what's being played on the screen.
Exactly. There's nothing wrong in screaming at the screen. Screaming at the screen. Well, that sounds very similar. But the problem is if we stay there, if we stay in the realm of effects where we stay powerless. We need, as you're saying, to go over to the projector and change the image that is being projected, which is just a metaphor for going into our own self, healing our own stuff, and beginning to contribute to the projection, which is not only our own. We shouldn't like live in our own bubble or like believe that we're the sole creator of this shared reality, but we're one beam of light and everyone else is as well. And we're going to change what is being projected so that we don't want to scream at it anymore. We want to celebrate it. And we can already celebrate that we have that power, even though we're collectively not using that power very wisely. There's one more comment. I'll see if I can bring it up here. Here we go, and then bringing it up. Yeah, I'm slow, but hey, slow gets it done still. Patience. Here we go. Most people are so busy maintaining the illusion that they live, the illusion they live, that questions like these actually frighten them. Yeah, and isn't the allegory of the cave just a perfect depiction of that, or like element, because that was casually in the background. Yeah, I think we're approaching the end of the conversation, gentlemen. What do you say? Do you want to have one last roar? Roar.
Yeah, I'll go on a little short tangent. There's a few points I wrote down. Shadow work has been mentioned a couple times. Okay, we have to do shadow work, but what's on the other end of it? What do we acquire through the shadow work is another question. Because just inviting people to do shadow work is kind of a loose term, and you should do shadow work. So I've been pondering on that question. So, and through different books, and there's, we were talking about children, how people have a mentation of a child, but that's not so fair for the children. It's more of a say that people act as in the childish ways. It kind of could be an insult to children because they, so after we look for other words, and in French there's the word pusillanime, pusillanimité, and it's the opposite of pussy.
It's where the word pussy comes from. That's where it comes from.
No. No, I don't think so.
I know this. Pusillanimous.
Oh yeah.
That's where the word when people say you're a pussy, what they mean is that you're a coward, right?
Exactly.
And that's where the word pussy comes from. It's from pusillanimous.
Oh, okay. Because puer actually means children, like puriculture. I mean, you're not talking about etymologically maybe
Oh
they
wait,
can't.
did I hear you wrong? I thought that was the word you said. What was the word you said?
Pusillanimité. And the first PU comes from puer. Puériculture means raising children. Ou puéril, quelqu'un qui dit puéril. You could also say that puerile means childish. But pusillanimité could be directed to an adult, meaning, oh, you're behaving cowardly. And the opposite is magnanimity, magnanimity. So greatness. And the author I've been reading about this, he says these are the two essence of virtuous leadership. So growing yourself and growing the people around you. And so that the essence of virtuous leadership, according to him, is having those two magnanimity, and also then there's those virtues, the virtues of courage, humbleness, maîtrise de soi, mastering your emotions, and justice, making sure everybody gets their fair share. That's how he views justice. So yeah, it's just another word out there. Those two words, and aspire to your own greatness, your authentic self. That's eventually what you obtain. Well, you evolve towards through your shadow work, I guess, gradually. And I'm not sure your shadow work is like a question of time or an event. It's a process, an ongoing process, of course. I think I'm repeating myself here. I'm good.
Yeah, thanks for expanding our dictionary or vocabulary. Pusillanimité, having little courage, and being very little, and as you said, coming from pullus, young animal, or like coming from pau, little, and then also magnanimous, which is the magna, which we know as being like great, and then animus, having a great spirit. That's definitely something I want to aspire to live magnanimously. That sounds awesome. There was also a comment here related that the majority of people are frightened. And what happens when what's the result? What does fear cause? It causes ignorance and confusion. And that's what this image depicts, right? Someone who is confused about how causality works and ends up hitting themselves in the head. Why are you punching yourself? Why are you punching yourself? Fellas, I've really enjoyed this conversation with you, and will bring to the audience's attention that I'll be hosting a group reading over at the ARC book club, and I've just shared the link to that in the comment section, and we'll share it as well in the description when the video is no longer live. So join the Telegram group, the ARC book club, where we look at the material that is in the amazing repository of knowledge, which is a drive, an external drive that PASSIO offers, and it's got plenty of documentaries, plenty of books, and one of the books is that we're going through right now is the KYBALION, and we're gonna be reading the last chapters, including the chapter regarding gender and mental gender. So that will be happening on Thursday, this upcoming Thursday, and it will be in European time around the evening. And if you're in the US, it will be happening around lunchtime, depending on in which time zone you are there. So hope to see a lot of people at the group reading. It will be a longer group reading, as we're going to be reading maybe 50 pages or so. And we'll be also sharing some feedback and insights and preparing ourselves for the upcoming Sunday roundtable. And that will actually mark maybe temporary, maybe definitive ending of the, or pause of the Europa Natural Law roundtable discussions. So we hope to see you all there. And with that, I'll thank you, Param, and Adrian for being here. And the floor is yours if you have any last...
No, I just want to say goodbye
Awesome.
to Adrian, goodbye to Oscar, and a goodbye to all our lovely listeners. A bientôt.
Yeah, I just want to say it's an honor to be on here. I like that these, Param and Oscar were in the 2024 How to Become the True Media, and hey, small world. Also, I'm very interested in the AAA method that Mark's coming out with, if I'm correct. Acknowledgement, affirmation, action. It can tie into the principle of causation, being that, acknowledgement, it's just like the acknowledgement, affirmation into action, relating to the trivium, AAA adding up to 3. That's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like a battery, right? The AAA. You gotta have the power.
Yeah.
And
Charge.
people are interested in attending that seminar. I don't know if it's still possible to apply for it when I think it might still be possible to apply. It's an all-day seminar hosted on Telegram this November.
Did you apply, Oscar?
I did apply. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, I didn't apply yet. Do you know how you do? I'll ask you on the sidelines, because I have difficulties doing private donations. I don't know how you do it, actually. I'll ask you.
It was. I think it should be similar to the How to Become the True Media, if I'm correct. Maybe Cash App.
Yeah, but I ended up sending what is it with I can't remember, but it's some. I didn't use what he was recommending. I think it was a UBS something.
OBS. What?
Forget it. I'll discuss the details with you guys afterwards. It's not really relevant.
Peace.
Relevant. Peace, you all. Yeah. Hi, Jeffrey. Yeah, peace.